Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Night Live. Man, it's going to be a good one. I feel like I'm out of touch with you all. I haven't been live since last Tuesday. I've dropped a bunch of videos. I dropped a bunch of videos today too. So if you haven't caught them, make sure you tune in. All about different toxic products in your home and good substitutions. Good substitutions. Before I begin, let me go ahead and read my disclaimer. This is intended to be medical information, not medical advice. Please do not change the way you are taking your prescription medication without first consulting your prescribing physician. And these sessions do not constitute a doctor-patient relationship. All right, man. So you know what? Inquiring minds say that the one of the biggest questions that people with blood sugar instability have is, why do they have blood sugar instability that is coming from their gut? Well, there are a number of reasons why, and we speak in the masterclass about a number of reasons why, and GI tract problems, leaky gut, and infections and inflammation are all things that lead to, first, insulin resistance, then high blood sugar, and then type 2 diabetes. So let's look at these. They all come from the gut. Many of these come from the gut. First and foremost, imbalances. Imbalances. Well, imbalances in what, Dr. Raj? Well, imbalances in your microbiome. Your microbiome. Your microbiome is made up of bacteria. In fact, human beings are just big bags of bacteria. There is good bacteria, and then there's bad bacteria, and we have to have both. And we have to have a balance of these bacterias. I'm going to share my screen in a moment, and I'm going to show you a stool test where we're able to see whether or not your bacteria in your microbiome, in your GI tract, is either balanced or imbalanced. Also, when it comes to bacteria, you're not just looking for imbalances, but you're looking for abundance, meaning that you can have too much or too little bacteria in addition to an imbalance. So we're going to look to see and look at this patient's stool test and find out whether they have too much or too little bacteria, and also find out whether or not there is an imbalance of bacteria. Now, how would you know whether or not this existed without a stool test? You simply wouldn't. Your gut, and as we spoke about in the masterclass, is your second brain. That's why people talk about having a gut feeling or a nervous belly. It is your gut and your brain are directly connected. There is something called the blood-brain barrier, and that is just very unfair because the gut shares that same blood barrier. So it really should be called the blood and gut-brain barrier. They are one and the same. They are talking to one another constantly, gut and brain. So leaky gut means leaky brain, which means if you have problems with your gut, that you may have forgetfulness, you may have memory loss, you may have problems with irritability, angst, worry, depression, all coming from your gut and these imbalances. So I'm going to talk about 4 different ways today that your gut causes blood sugar instability. The first are imbalances. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So this is Linda Marks's stool test. No, I'm just kidding, Linda. It's not your stool test. I'm just kidding. But it is a stool test from a patient. And as you can see, I think that's just coming up right now. This was reported on June 6th of 2025. So just a couple of weeks ago. So this is fresh. This is a fresh stool test. Um, how we look at the stool test is that there are 5 different columns of digestion that are assessed. With this patient, we first start with blood work, and blood work will give us clues as to whether or not a patient is having GI tract problems. A lot of times, people will tell you on the intake form, a lot of times they won't. So they're embarrassed. It's not a fun topic to speak about GI tract problems. Um, and if not specifically asked, they may not offer it up. However, the clues do not evade us. We see on the blood work that it appears that there might be GI tract problems. Now, I was speaking to a patient, not this patient, but another patient the other day, and I greatly suspect she has some GI tract problems. She has very bad memory loss. I notice when speaking with her, she is losing her train of thought. She's like, I just lost it. And all of that, I believe, and she's having some angst and depression. And I do believe it's coming from her gut. When asked about her GI tract function, she says, everything's cool, doc. Everything's the way it should be. I don't have any problems. And I believe her. However, I believe that there might be something going on that may not be symptomatic enough for her to realize that there's something going on in her GI tract. How do we find out? Is this stool test? Well, with this patient now, I suspected that she had a parasitic infection, and I was pretty confident of it. Um, and when we run the stool test, obviously, if she does have a parasitic infection, that will come up. So let's go ahead and start on the far right, which is the 5th column, which is infection. And you can see where it says parasitic infection on the way bottom, there's a green dot. You read this like a traffic light, green, yellow, and red. Um, no parasite, no parasite. But these columns are graded on a scale from 0 to 10, and 10's the worst. So she's got a very bad infection, and while it's not a parasitic infection, there is a pathogenic bacterial infection. Which one we don't know yet just by looking here at the summary, but as we scroll down, we will find out. She also, in addition to having a pathogenic bacterial infection, she's got a bacterial yeast fungal infection. So she's got 2 infections. Now, one of the things that causes insulin resistance, high blood sugar, and type 2 diabetes, if you remember me going through the whys, infections are one of them. Well, she's got 2 infections in the gut causing insulin resistance, high blood sugar, and type 2 diabetes. Now, I brought this up to show you imbalances. This is not an imbalance. These are 2 infections. I'll show you imbalance in a moment. Metabolic imbalance, no. On a scale from 0 to 10, she's a 0. So that's pretty good. She is a little deficient in short chain fatty acids. And as a result, her butyrate concentrate is down. This is a quick, easy fix by adding in some MCT, or better yet, SCT oil, which is a short chain fatty acid. Coming over to the middle, that's a 10 out of 10. Dysbiosis stands for eating foods that does not agree with her. Well, certainly because she's got a bacterial yeast fungal infection. And as you can see, her methane score has increased and total abundance. Now, we're going to speak about abundance in a moment. We spoke about balance and abundance of bacteria, and abundance is too high. Coming over now to inflammation. Inflammation is another reason that causes insulin resistance, high blood sugar, and type 2 diabetes. It is one of the yellow tabs of all of my commonly missed reasons for insulin resistance, high blood sugar, and type 2 diabetes. Inflammation's way up there. Now, she does have inflammation, and when you looked at her blood work, her inflammation markers were through the roof. But it's not really coming from her gut. There's a little inflammation on a scale from 1 to 10, a 1. So the bulk of her inflammation and the reason for her inflammation markers being through the roof on her blood work is not because of her gut. It's not because of her gut. However, if it were, then the gut would be one of the reasons causing inflammation and therefore insulin resistance, high blood sugar, and type 2 diabetes. Coming over to the far left column, we've got maldigestion, and she is deficient in pancreatic elastase. That's very easily fixable, but without the elastase and the enzyme, she's not going to be breaking down fats properly. So now we speak about commensal abundance. Now we're talking about bacteria here. And remember, you can have good and bad bacteria, but that's not this. That's a balance. This is abundance. You can have either too much or too little of bacteria. And as you can see, 100% would be in the center. And this patient, is at a potential microbiome overgrowth. She's got too much bacteria. This is also known as SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. So we got to get this under control. Too much bacteria is going to lead to an imbalance, and she's got that. She's got small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. We need to settle down the bacteria. Now, this is inflammation. We want to be in zone 1. She was a 1 out of 10, not real bad, but she could improve. Again, like a traffic light, green, yellow, and red. She's in green to yellow. We want to be the far bottom left. So there's some inflammation that can be reduced and worked on. Now, we're talking about the balance. There's good bacteria and bad bacteria, and this is balance. So you can look at this and you could see that she is approximately 11 to 11.5 standard deviations away from where we want her to be, which would be this bottom left-hand corner. She is in the way red. That means that there is an imbalance of the 7 families of bacteria. Here are these 7 families. They're all Latin families. You got Bacterocodes phylum, Firmicutes phylum, Actinobacteria phylum, Protobacteria phylum, Eukarya. I don't think I'm pronouncing that properly. Phylum and Fuscobacteria phylum. Now, when you're looking at these bar graphs, you really want them to be in equal length. More importantly, you want them to fall between the negative 25 and the positive 25 lines. And you can see that, one, they are not equal in length, but we have a number, especially the one I cannot pronounce. I only took 1 year of Latin. I probably should have taken more. But this is way over where we want it to be. That's an overabundance, as is this Protobacteria phylum is also a little bit above where we need it to be. And a Firmicutes phylum is just a bit over where we want that to be. This is all contributing to an overabundance of bacteria. Down here, it'll break down the individual families, like here's Firmicutes phylum, the individual members of each family, and it'll tell you which ones are speaking out of school. You want them all to be in the green. You don't want them to be in the yellow or the red. We can go down here and we can come up with a game plan as to what's going on. Now, look, this is additional bacteria that it was found, not just the 7 families, but additional bacteria. And look, she's got a number that are in the yellow. Klebsiella is high. But most importantly, I want to scroll down. This is parasitology. There are no parasites detected. That's awesome. However, I do want to show you that here is a major bacterial infection. It's called H. pylori, and you may have heard of this. This is a major driver of inflammation, high blood sugar, and type 2 diabetes. So what did we find? We found a bacterial yeast fungal infection. That is the wrong fuel for the mitochondria. It will make walls of insulin resistance and prevent that bacterial yeast fungal infection from wanting to come in. H. pylori That is a pretty wicked infection. And that too, the mitochondria is going to make up walls to try to resist that from getting into its gas tank. What else did we find? Well, we found pancreatic elastase that was deficient, short chain fatty acids that were deficient. Um, we found a number of problems on the GI tract. That's the first reason that causes type 2 diabetes. That is a problem with the gut imbalances, a bacterial overgrowth and a bacterial imbalance was leading to infections that no one finds. You can't find that unless you do a stool test. That goes undetected. So let me ask you a question. What will happen with metformin is that when metformin is added, um, actually, that leads me to my next reason. The first reason is imbalance. The second reason is inflammation, and we spoke about that briefly. The third reason, I'll get back to in a moment, but the fourth reason is speed of digestion. If there's a change in the speed of your digestion, it's going to affect blood sugar absorption. And when you have food, let's start there. Let's start with the third reason. The third reason is Paul Revere. Now, you may have heard me speak about Paul Revere in the masterclass. Paul Revere, if you don't remember, is a revolutionary hero. I don't remember what cities it was, but when the British were coming, he got on a horse and he rode from Lexington to Concord or or the other way around. I don't know, but the British are coming. The British are coming. He warned all the colonists that the British were coming to attack. Well, you have Paul Revere in your gut. Every time you eat food, Paul Revere is like a sensor and senses that food is coming, gets on his horse and goes from your gut and makes the horse ride to your pancreas to warn the pancreas. Not that the British are coming, but food is coming. And the pancreas says, oh my goodness, I will begin to release insulin so that when that food hits the belly, it doesn't raise your blood sugar so high that there is an insulin a surge in blood sugar. Well, as soon as that, if your gut is not working properly and these endoreceptors named Paul Revere do not sense food is coming. They're taking a nap. They're not working properly. And then they don't get on the horse and they do not notify the pancreas. So what happens is that food gets to your belly and it raises your blood sugar so high that by the time the pancreas finds out, it freaks out and releases so much insulin to pat down that high blood sugar that you have high highs and then very low lows. If you're a person that has instability of blood sugar that varies greatly, high highs and low lows of your blood sugar, it is very likely that your gut is not working properly, that these endoreceptors are not working, that Paul Revere is not there and not making it his ride. So that is the third reason. The first reason is an imbalance of bacteria or an overabundance of bacteria, a deficiency of bacteria, or simply a bad balance of good and bad bacteria. The second reason is inflammation. And that comes from infections in the gut. It comes from those imbalances. It comes from other areas. The stool test I just showed you, inflammation was not a major driver there, but she did have high inflammation markers coming from other areas, just not in the gut. The third reason are these endoreceptors, Paul Revere, that are not working properly. The fourth is the speed of digestion. Now, you have all these problems with your gut. You have causing blood sugar instability, causing high blood sugar, causing the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes, the doctor's first prescription for you in the traditional care model is metformin. What does metformin do? Metformin speeds up digestion so that you do not digest all of your food in hopes of your blood sugar not rising. So what happens to the undigested food? If you're digesting food faster than you should be, there's a portion of the food that does not get digested. That portion of food becomes and gets excreted as diarrhea. That is not a side effect, but it is the desired effect of metformin. It is there to speed up digestion so you do not digest all of your food so your blood sugar does not go up. Well, if blood sugar instability is caused by problems with digestion, how on earth would metformin be helping you if you had a GI tract problem? Another problem with digestion is something called gastroparesis. It is when you have constipation. It is when you are not digesting food. I have patients who do not move their bowels for sometimes an entire week. That is not healthy. That is not normal. That is not okay. Those are signs of gastroparesis. Gastroparesis is not a side effect, but rather a desired effect of Ozempic and Mounjaro. That is what they are intended to do. They slow down digestion so you do not absorb your food so that your blood sugar doesn't go up. Metformin speeds up, causes diarrhea. Mounjaro and Ozempic slow down so you do not digest your food. Both, whether they speed up your digestion or slow down your digestion, is messing with the normal function of digestion and therefore can lead to blood sugar instability. Are you kidding me? You're taking these medications to regulate blood sugar instability, but they may be contributing to more blood sugar instability. Okay, so imbalances in bacteria, good and bad bacteria, abundance of bacteria, inflammation, endoreceptors, Paul Revere, and the speed in which you digest your food. These are 4 reasons or 4 malfunction problems of your GI tract that lead to blood sugar instability. What do you do? Well, you got to look at your gut. You got to take a look and see what's going on there. I speak about these stool tests all the time. You know, the father of modern medicine, Hippocrates, all doctors take the Hippocratic Oath. He believed that all disease came from the gut, all disease. He wasn't far off. He wasn't far off. More than 70% of our immune system cells live in our gut. But he did blood, urine, and stool tests on everyone, the father of modern medicine. We stopped doing that. I don't know why. Sparky the dog. If you have a dog or a cat or a pet and take it to the vet, they're getting a stool test almost instantaneously. Why? Because the stool will tell you a great deal about a person's overall health, or I guess a pet's overall health, which I guess our pets are more important than us. And I think many of you would actually agree. Right, Chester? Yeah. Man, when I die, I want to come back as Chester or one of your pets here in America. But I don't want to come back as a human because we don't take stool tests. So we don't find our problems. We don't do the detective work. And frankly, we're just given medications to allow us to continue our miserable existence until our time is done. That's awful. There is another way. You were able to reverse type 2 diabetes. Get to the root cause of why you have problems. today was about talking about gut problems. And I spoke about four. It's probably about 400. There are a lot of problems that we are able to identify when you do the detective work and find out what the heck is going on. This is Dr. Raj reminding you to treat the root and not the fruit. Wishing you health and wellness. Check out the videos. I just posted a whole bunch of videos, and I will be posting more throughout the week. All right. Have a wonderful night. And if I don't speak to you again soon, I'll speak to you next Tuesday on Tuesday Night Live. Have a great night.